Tekken, Namco's very own fighting game franchise, began here in all its polygonal glory. Tekken was the PlayStation's answer to Sega's Virtua Fighter, one of the earliest 3D fighting games, and it even managed to outperform both fighting game phenomenons Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat on Sony's new hardware. The Tekken franchise quickly transformed into a powerhouse in the fighting game space and still to this day holds its gravitas. The first Tekken released back in arcades in 1994 and then made its way to the PlayStation in 95, where it starred as one of the console's launch titles. This is very much one of the pioneering 3D fighters, but it only started out as an animation test at Namco. It wouldn't be until ex-Sega employees who had worked on Virtua Fighter joined Namco, then they set out to recreate the same success but with a new IP and under Namco's banner. Tekken was made to surpass Virtua Fighter, having smoother gameplay, aiming at 60 frames per second, and having more detailed textures. They wanted bold, standout characters to lead the promotion, and an intuitive control system that made it fun to learn and master. Tekken, despite its similarities to other contemporary fighting games, attempted to go in a different direction via its limb control system, that instead of you having a selection of high attacks and low attacks, your face buttons instead were mapped each to a separate limb, allowing you to execute moves that felt like you was controlling the character like a puppet, which comes off feeling more natural. Combining buttons allows you to pull off some of the more advanced special moves and grapples unique to each character, and there are some really strong attacks to discover. This intuitive combat design would have even gone on to inspire other fighting games to adopt in later years. That's not to say it was perfect in this first attempt, however, as animations are still pretty clunky and the characters have a very noticeable amount of weight to them, something that would be much improved upon in the following sequels. Stages were based off real-world locations like the Acropolis in Greece, Kyoto, Japan, Venice, Italy, Lake Windermere, and many more. The design doesn't hold up the greatest compared to its competition, which had more colourful animated backgrounds, as here there is still a bit blocky and static, but it was cool to see a lot of real-world locations represented in the game. Tekken leans heavily on its plot, with each of its 8 starting characters getting different ending cutscenes to unlock once you complete their respective arcade mode, all in complete CGI, which was really cool to see for the time. In Tekken, Heihachi Mishima, the head of the Mishima Zaibatsu Corporation, wanted to see if his son was capable of becoming his heir to the family company, so he took him to the top of a mountain and threw him off the cliff edge. If he survived and climbed back up, then his son, Kazuya Mishima, would be worthy. Kazuya instead did survive, but couldn't climb back up the cliff wall, and he was left with a nasty scar on his chest which awakened a devil gene within him. Using the power of the devil gene, Kazuya trained to become strong enough to take on his father in a duel. When Heihachi announces the King of the Iron Fist fighting tournament and a winning prize of $1 billion, Kazuya signs right up alongside a cast of other warriors from around the globe, with Kazuya's only goal being to claim his revenge. There are a total of 16 playable characters and a skin swap for Kazuya's devil form. You start off with 8 unlocked, and winning each character's arcade mode will unlock the rest. Each of the original 8 have different special attacks and fighting styles that differentiate them, whilst the unlockable characters mostly reuse a lot of the same styles and are classed as rivals of the main 8. Unlocked from the start, there is Kazuya Mishima, the son of the tournament's host Heihachi, and the main protagonist of this first and only game. Paul Phoenix. He is seen as a rival to Kazuya, almost like the Street Fighter's Ken of Tekken, a hot-headed American wanting to prove he's the world's best fighter. Martial law. This guy is your staple Bruce Lee archetype, which was a must-have for any and every fighting game of the time. A speedy brawler, he enters the tournament to seek fame and fortune and to open his own fighting school. King, a luchador who dons a jaguar mask. King enters the tournament to fund the building of an orphanage. Michelle Chang, daughter of a Native American mother and a father from Hong Kong who was murdered by Heihachi's company. Michelle has also joined the tournament to claim her revenge. For the time, she was a very different take on the Native American fighter, in that she wasn't a muscular shaman covered in face paint. Nina Williams, an assassin that is rumoured to be also trying to take out Heihachi Mishima. Jack, a deadly military cyborg that is huge and was built and sent to join the tournament to take out Kazuya before he could win the tournament, but the robot fails its mission. And there's Yoshimitsu, leader of the International Thieves Guild. He is an automation in the form of a ninja swordsman. As for unlockable characters, there are Li Chaolan. He is the adopted son of Heihachi Mishima and grew up alongside Kazuya to be his rival. He is a master martial artist and is out to stop Kazuya from claiming his revenge. Wang Jinrei. He is an old master who was also a close friend to Heihachi's father, Jinpachi Mishima. Now he closely follows Heihachi, even if he may not always agree with his master's actions. You have Armor King. He is another luchador with a grey panther mask and has his scar over his eye, which is from a battle with King. He is King's rival and plans to defeat him and take over the wrestling world. Kunimitsu is an ex-member of the International Thieves Guild who was expelled by Yoshimitsu after going against their code. She joins the tournament to steal a Native American treasure from Heihachi. Anna Williams, she is the younger sister of Nina and her rival. Not receiving quite the same assassin's training as her elder sister did, Anna, jealous of Nina, cries for revenge against her. There's Prototype Jack. This is a playable promo model of the Jack cyborg that was built for power alone, and thus its outer casing isn't complete. Heihachi uses this prototype in the tournament. Ganryu, a successful sumo wrestler who enters the tournament to prove his worth. However, he is also defeated by Yoshimitsu. Kuma, literally meaning bear, is a pet of Heihachi's that he trained in martial arts. Yeah, I'm not joking. And lastly, there is Heihachi Mishima himself, the main antagonist and one of the main characters in the Tekken franchise. Heihachi is the head of the Mishima Zaibatsu, the lead military organization on the planet. He organised a fighting tournament to gather the strongest warriors across the globe, which he plans to use for his own gains. However, in the finals of the tournament, it is Kazuya who reaches the end, and he faces off against his father. A tough battle, but one that Kazuya narrowly wins and uses his victory to deliver the same brutal act to Heihachi. He carries his body to the top of the same cliffside and throws him off the edge. Kazuya now becomes the new head of the Mishima Zaibatsu, taking control of the business from here on out. It's really awesome to see such an early fighting game lean heavily on its ridiculous plot and characters. Alongside the intuitive combat system, this will become a staple part of the series for fans. It didn't take itself too seriously, but it was still fun to follow along, and the dense character roster meant that everyone had at least one combatant that they gravitated towards, even if it was the bear. What does date Tekken is its severe lack of modes. This is just your genre staple setup. You've got the single player arcade mode that has you battling AI opponents until you reach the final boss, and then you'll unlock that respective character's end cutscene. And then there's a versus mode exclusive for 2 players, letting you and a friend select a fighter and battle it out to see who is the king of the Iron Fist tournament. And outside of a few options where you can change like AI difficulty or the amount of rounds that a match has, that is all of the content that this game has. Tekken is still a fun little fighting game to pick up and play that can stand side by side against Virtua Fighter, but it certainly hasn't aged as well as some of the 2D fighting content that was coming out around the same time, and is very dated compared to its sequels. With an extremely slim selection of modes, a lack in graphical quality, and rather clunky control, Tekken does leave a lot to be desired, but it is a classic nonetheless. For that, I'm giving it my rating of a B for Bravo. I really enjoy the game. For the time, it was one of the best home-to-arcade versions. It's got a legendary cast of characters, a quirky story which is still fairly rare to see in the fighting game space, and it really laid the groundwork for a lot of 3D brawlers to come with its control scheme. Tekken would go on to become the first PlayStation game to sell over 1 million copies, winning the Platinum re-release on the system. Tune in next time on Don Critic when we'll cover the sequel and see where Kazuya takes the series next. If you enjoy video game content like this, you can check out more in the description. Thanks all so much for watching and have a nice day. Take care.